Welcome to MSP Unplugged's Emerging Vendor Series. I'm your host, Paco Lebron. Join us in this new series as we highlighting ConnectWise PitchIT contestants as we highlight an emerging vendor who is changing the game and making a big impact in the MSP space. But before we go into that, I'd love to talk to you about our upcoming event, and that is TechCon Unplugged. TechCon Unplugged will be in Woodbridge, New Jersey, September 7th through the 10th at the Delta Hotels Woodbridge. Join us for a kickoff event for an evening mixer for 2.5 days worth of content to help better your business, save time, save money, and most importantly, improve services. This show is for any size IT solution provider, which makes this the place for you. Head over to ticket sales. Actually, by the time this is airing, ticket sales for the second tier have already been over. So we are at our full price of tickets at $349. If you happen to know somebody, we may be able to get you a discount code there. But head over to techconunplugged.com, see about all of the information, details, some of the friends and speakers that we have speaking at that event, and we hope to see you there. Again, techconunplugged.com, get your tickets today. All right, I want to go ahead and introduce my co-host for this series. We have none other than Sean Lardo, Economy Evangelist over at ConnectWise. Sean, how are you today?
I'm great. I'm enjoying the beautiful weather here in the northeastern region of the U.S. that, although we've been seeing smoke and cloudy skies due to Canada for days, we've switched from smoke to just clouds. So,
Yep.
yeah, how you doing?
So we had the same similar thing. We had a beautiful weather last week. It was high 80s, pool time. I just had put my pool up, and then we had all this fog and crazy mist that was like, well, what's going on? And we get these notifications that it's the air quality. So happened to
Yep.
talk to Rick, and Rick had dealt with this a couple weeks back because of the
Mm-hmm.
wildfires in Canada, and now
Yep.
kind of just started running its way through the Midwest and apparently going
Yep.
back up east. So it's definitely not
Oh,
been so cool to be inside of this inside of the room here. So definitely would be prefer to be out there.
I'm done being inside. I refuse. So I'm outside.
Gotcha. Well, I'm super excited to talk to this next guest that we have coming up in this show. We have Chris Dix, founder and CTO of ChatStyle. Chris, how are you today?
I'm doing great. Thanks a lot for having me.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, I'm super excited to talk to you. I think we talked a little bit before we went on air about kind of what your product does as far as how it's handling chat and really just involving a lot of the artificial intelligence or AI, that buzzword that we have kind of going around nowadays. But you truly are doing that. You are actually implementing a lot of that in there, and we'll dive into that in a second. But I want to go ahead and talk a little bit about kind of your origin story. How did you kind of came to be into the space? And also, how did you come to ChatStyle?
Sure. I'm not an MSP. I've had friends for a very long time who are MSPs. I'm a software developer by trade and by experience. And so, working with my friends who are MSPs, I'd hear some of their problems of, chat is hard to support. That they're having trouble keeping in touch with their customers, getting their touch customers to respond to them, and just wanting to be able to handle different communications channels. And so, listening to their problems, learning about their tool sets that they use, we started to work some things out, and that's how we got to the solution we are.
Very cool. Very cool. Now, specifically on ChatStyle, your product, your service is actually a little bit different than a lot of the chat program services that are out there. Can you share a little bit about kind of what makes ChatStyle a little bit more of a unique differentiator than some of the other products that somebody may have been seeing or tried to compare another vendor to yours?
Sure. Yeah, and there are definitely some other platforms in the space that are providing some good solutions. So one of the things that I think makes us different is first that we're omni-channel. So the way your customer wants to talk to you via chat can mean so many different things. It could mean Slack, it could mean Teams, it could mean SMS. So we built the system to be able to talk to pretty much anything with an API. And so in addition to that, we also have a higher level of customization. I think we're able to really let you, working together with us, shape the conversation to be what you want it to be. Every MSP has got their own voice that they want to provide to the customer. And so we have that level of customization and AI integration that that allows for you to automate some things that that just to make life a little easier for your techs and your customers.
Very cool, very cool. And then I
So,
know that there.
hey,
Go ahead,
Paco, I
Tom.
think I was about to say you should probably. I think there's a you started going on the path, Paco, that I think is something that needs to be addressed very simplistically, which is different than other chats. Historically speaking, when you think of chat, you think of you're going onto somebody's website, you click on a chat button. Somebody has to work that chat on through a website, right? Like they have to be on the same platform talking, right? That was always historically we're talking about here. You know, it's the diversification is just so important because Paco, you're an MSP, your tech staff, they work out of one place. If they have to work out of 4 or 5 places, it becomes a struggle. And then you as an owner then struggle because them documenting the conversations is altogether separate too. So I think we really should, Chris, I think you're doing a disservice to yourself by not even talking about the fact that this is a way to automate communication as well and simplify the way in which things are being documented and whatnot.
Well, I appreciate you fixing that for me. Yes, it is a way to automate. Yeah, it's a way to automate parts of it because you need that level of automation to be able to scale. But it's also, like you mentioned, a bridge. So you've already invested in some sort of internal communication tool. It's probably Teams or Slack. Could be something else like Ring Central. You want to let your customers use the chat channel, communications channel that they want to use to contact you, but you need it to go into the tools that you're already invested in. And so that includes your internal messaging and it includes your PSA like ConnectWise. So you need it to go into the tool your techs are already in, and then you need it to go into ConnectWise where it belongs.
And I think also going down that path too, you're actually really leveraging some other cool things as far as AI, because your tagline is AI is the new UI, or it is the UI. And so can you share a little bit about how you're leveraging open AI and how and their services inside of the platform as well?
Yes. So it's pretty exciting being able to, when we first started down this path, we, like everybody else, this level of AI integration wasn't accessible to us. We were doing our own sort of solution, but now that we can tie into some of the ChatGPT, the Azure OpenAI service, we use it in 2 key places in the system. One is for the techs. So technicians can, inside of Teams or Slack, communicate with a ChatGPT-like interface that connects to the PSA. So they can do things like ask just to look up a contact by name. They can ask to create a new ticket for a particular customer, and both of those things just using natural language. And we can serve as the bridge between that and the PSA. On the other side, the customer facing, we rein it in a little bit because anybody who's played with ChatGPT knows it can get off the rails pretty quickly. But we are able to use it intelligently to collect a few key pieces of information. So if the customer says my printer isn't working, ChatGPT can be smart enough with a carefully crafted prompt to say, oh, I'm sorry, what's the model? What's the name? What do you mean it's not printing? As long as we keep it short, let it ask a few key questions, and then kick it back over into the ticket, then we've done some of the legwork for the tech before it ever gets to them.
And I think that's so huge, right? For 2 reasons. One, I love that being able to incorporate the OpenAI services, and OpenAI being with the company that creates ChatGPT, DALL-E, etc. I was kind of telling you too. I just did a webinar this past Tuesday for a council that I sit on about ChatGPT and the leveraging for small businesses. And one of the discussions that came up was this would be a great way to do it in chat. How do I integrate it into your into our website? And so I mentioned, you know what, OpenAI does have that API that can have the ability to incorporate that, but you're going to need a developer. You got to go ahead and get some work in there, and you've kind of cut out a lot of that legwork in there to really do that. And then 2, I think what's really important to highlight is that for someone that may be coming into the MSP space, so a technician that has great customer service but may not be strong on the tech side, or even an office coordinator or dispatch that's taking in intake, this allows to cut that, like you mentioned, to cut that legwork, really asking those questions, because for us to train them to say, okay, we need to figure out and answer the 5 prompts on a ticket. It's who, what, where, why, and when. If we can't answer all those prompts, the ticket is useless to us because we're trying to investigate and find more information. And it sounds like that this is not only a automated way of doing it, but it also helps alleviate a lot of that progress as well. So definitely cool things that you have mentioned, and I did want to make sure that I highlighted those as well. But I want to kind of shift a little bit to kind of, you are in this program for PitchIT. Obviously, it's the incubator program that ConnectWise is doing, and Sean is leading this endeavor. How did you find out about the program, and what made you decide to do it? Because I think there's different reasons for a lot of people who want to do the program, because I think they had, I mean, Sean, you mentioned there was a record number this year of those who applied, and what it means. Can you actually, before Chris, you go into that, can you share a little bit about how important this incubator has been for a lot of these members, such as Chris, to kind of go through that programming?
Sure. So, when it was originally conceived, PitchIT from ConnectWise 5 years ago, it was Shark Tank concept competition only, right? And anybody's ever watched Shark Tank, those guys show up to pitch, right? And that's when they're seeing the judges for the first time, and they're pitching, and they win or they lose, they get invested or they don't, right? That's what happens right then and there. So, and that's great and all for a game show, and for if you're looking for clicks and everything, it's great, right? But the reality is, for ConnectWise, it's an investment, not just the prize money, but for the people that are supporting it and all the things we're doing, right? So it's the selfish motivation is, we're looking for vendors that are going to be able to be successful in our ecosystem, right? They need to have staying power, because it's a lot of work to be done to get them in, to get them invested, and to get them to grow and succeed, right? There's a lot of work. So to have them be a coin operated business and they're gone because they couldn't make it, because they didn't have the proper preparation, that was the change. So last year was the first year of the accelerated incubator program, and that was all geared towards let's identify where their gaps are. For one, I don't know what all these guys know and don't know, and what they excel at, not yet, not until I meet them, right? And even then I still don't know, because any entrepreneur, and I'm talking to entrepreneurs now on this call, if I say, where's your improvements, you're like, we don't need any improvements. Or you might say, or you say, I need this improvement over here. And I look at that, and I'm like, no, it's over here. But you don't know, because again, you don't know what you don't know sometimes, right? That's all of us, right? So when we create this accelerated incubator program, I brought in Cameo coaches that were outside of ConnectWise and inside of ConnectWise that represented all factors of a business, everything from sales and marketing to mergers and acquisition to integrations to road mapping to whatever, right? Again, I don't know, people don't know, so I played the generalities of things, right, that I know that were typical hot topic spots, right? So the goal in this was to have them have these classes every single week and learn some things. Maybe they're like they have their aha moments, right? And they realize they can work on that, and they also get connections. They can access these people too. Like, I don't hold anything back. If they want to talk to them afterwards, and if there's business to be done amongst them or whatever it may be, that's up to them, as long as they're getting the help. But and then the other side of it was a big struggle point, regardless of how much they knew, was getting the awareness, working on their speak, and getting the awareness of what they do, so people can start working with them, right? And that's why we work with people like you guys, Paco. You guys have been gracious enough to just donate your time and resources to doing this, which we all appreciate. But the goal, again, is to get people like Chris out there exposure, so they can start to generate revenue. Because no matter how much they know, if they don't make any money and they don't grow their business, they're not going to make it long anyway. And that's a bad investment for us. It's a bad investment for them. So, so several years back, before this incubation program started, they were averaging 4 or 5, maybe even, I think their highest class was 10. And last year we had 18 in the class. This year we now have 26 in the class. So that tells you they're actually competing, and we vet them out. We have way more applications than that. We vet them out based off, is it worthwhile, really? Is it viable? If it's not, then we can't do anything with them, but otherwise, that's what it's all about. And I push these guys. These guys allocate 4 or 5 hours a week at least with me, plus run their business, plus do whatever, take care of their children, whatever else they got to do. So, but Chris is a repeat offender, by the way. He was here last year and he came back for more, which I don't understand, but
just a glutton for punishment, I guess. But no, I'm joking. The program has been great. It has done exactly what Sean has mentioned. Show us our gaps, show me where I needed to work, show me what I didn't know, which is a lot about the space, about the channel, about sales and marketing and connections. He's right. It doesn't matter. My natural tendency, like a lot of people with a technical background like this, is to add another feature to make this thing better, when what I need to do is let 100 more people know about it. And so I still fight that every day, and Sean is on me about it, and I appreciate that. But yes, did it last year, learned a lot. I've never had Sean to say it on camera before, but I think I improved greatly from last year.
I'll say it now. You absolutely have improved.
Thank you.
From the very first conversation we had last year, even throughout the whole season, you improved tremendously.
Thank you, Sean.
Your positioning, your talking, and I'll use Paco. Paco runs a conference. He knows exactly what happens. These people, especially as engineers, most of you guys are engineers. It's difficult. It's difficult. You want to tell me about all the great features.
I do. It has great features.
Right, exactly. And you're like, and we built this on this framework, and we did it this way. And yes, all valid at some point, but right now, what the hell do you do?
Yeah. You don't care how it works. You just want it to solve your problem for you.
Exactly. And there's a certain point where you might have to deal with that, right? If you're talking to a large company, you'll talk to their IT person. They want to know how this integration and where the rules lie. But before that, I just need to know what the hell it does. Does it solve a problem for me first? And if not, then we have no conversation here.
Yeah.
And I want to dive into that because, Sean just mentioned, and yourself as well, that you're now into the program for a second time. So I want to know, what are you looking to accomplish this time around that you felt that you either didn't or wanted to expand on going through the incubator program this year?
Well, short of winning, just making the connections again. There's a whole new set of peers here who, especially for us, we function as ideally that proverbial single pane of glass from an MSP, but from a messaging standpoint. So we want to integrate with as many other platforms as possible. If anybody has an API, we want to be able to support it for this type of automation and information gathering. So being able to have these close relationships with other companies who will hopefully be our peers in this space for a number of years, it's just a great place to start. And plus, I get to listen to all these great speakers each week, find out more about the channel and about how we can work within it, and I get to hang out with Sean. So what's better than that? So.
I can think of many things better than. No, I'm kidding. No,
I think. I'm like, that's such bullshit.
And so, Chris, I think for those that are listening, right, and maybe there are those that are interested in engaging with your company and knowing a little bit more, walk me through the process for someone that is interested in looking into the product. How does the implementation cycle look like? How easy is it to be able to get involved, get contact, implement, trial it out, and implement it into their own business? Can you walk me through how that process looks like, and how fast does that process look like?
Sure. Well, usually we start with a demo. We will do a one-on-one type thing, let them see the product in action. We follow that up with an installation, which we give a trial period, depending on the complexity of what they want to set up. But actually connecting to the systems, it's very easy. You just set up an API user with ConnectWise. You have an admin login to the messaging tool you want to connect in. Usually we can get things set up in about 45 minutes to get the initial connection going. And then what follows is kind of where we find the voice for the customer. So there's inevitably going to be like, well, can it say this and do this instead? And we've built the tools to make that easier. So in the days and a couple weeks after that is usually when we work out the details of something like that. But the initial setup and letting them try it out can happen in an afternoon.
Okay. And so when someone is implementing this and they have ideas, or they're trying to look for feature requests per se, how easy is it to have an open dialogue or communication with you or with the ChatStyle team and the company to see if A, something they want, or B, that they heard that ChatGPT or some other AI can do that they'd like to? How does that process look? Are you open to feedback like that? Is there a board or a feature system to do? How do you handle some of those type of requests?
Yeah, well, we are very open to that. But one of the things that I think that sets us apart from other platforms is for people who actually want to get down into the weeds of it, we actually expose the low code interface to them, so you can actually use like a drag and drop editor to say, oh, I want it to say this, and then, oh, if they say this, do this, and similarly, you can do the same thing with the slash commands that it can support. So if you want to have a command to do something to a ticket, for example, we can expose that low code and scripting interface to the MSP if they want to get into the details.
Sure. Now, I know that a lot of my colleagues and peers have been very wary of AI in general, right? And not understanding certain things, or concerned that the privacy policies may not be disclosing as much as they can. How have you battled a lot of, maybe, I wouldn't say negative, but any concerns that they have with, because you're talking about not only having a front-facing module to their end users, but you're also exposing API credentials to a PSA, such as like ConnectWise, right? And security is probably of concern for them. Can you share a little bit about on the AI? I'll tell you what, why don't you tell us about security, about your business side and how you're helping alleviate that security concern, and then maybe an open conversation on the AI side of that concern, implementing something like that so close to home with a lot of personal information or identifying information for those that may be working in that, again, the PSA or Teams or whatever environment they connect to.
Sure. Well, one of the things we do is we are using the Azure OpenAI service as an implementation of ChatGPT, which differs from some of the other OpenAI implementations in that it doesn't hold on to your information. So that is one thing. From our side, we have it configurable so that based on what kind of level you're comfortable with, we can wipe out the conversational information that we store almost as soon as it's done, or we can retain it for a short period of time. Since we're really functioning as a bridge, we're all about just getting it from the chat message into ConnectWise or into Teams and letting them handle it with the security levels that you are already using for those tools. So we try to stay out of that business, basically. But from an AI standpoint in general, in the comfort level, I think from one standpoint of it, it's a switch, so you can just turn it off in our product completely and just rely on automation and the hard-coded scripting. But in terms of the comfort level of people getting used to it, I think it's just another tool and needs to be used carefully. It's not a solution for everything, and it's certainly not something that should be used blindly or unwatched. It needs a pair of eyes on it, and it needs to just be a helper for the techs.
Yeah. See, for me, and I'm totally in that camp, Chris, where I'm all about embracing that new edge. I love being able to see how things kind of turn out, and really just being more cautious, but also embracing, right? Sean, I'm curious to what's your perspective of AI and in your realm, and how do you feel it's affecting kind of the day-to-day from just your own personal life?
Sure. No, that's actually a valid question, because my whole life my whole career has predominantly been enablement, right? And the only way you can enable people is by setting everything up for them to do their job, right? Whatever that means. The other part of enablement is also to automate the mundane tasks to make you more effective. That's a huge part of enablement. It's like, okay, why do I have Paco doing these 4 things that I can get a platform to do, or something along those lines? And so I look at AI first in that realm, just based off of the responses, right? I mean, tier one support, 80% of their workload is, I forgot my password, my printer doesn't work, the dumbest stuff like that, right? That can be vetted out really quick. So to use it in that way, I think is phenomenal, because that allows me to worry about skill set positions to fill, as opposed to just worker bees. I use it across the board for this AI and automation and machine learning, whatever else you want to call it at this point, because they're all the same at this point, as far as I'm concerned. My one concern about AI, or using like the automatic response, the response through AI to somebody is where they're pulling the information from to respond to, right? If that goes unchecked, because we know that ChatGPT, for instance, is pulling the same things you would pull if you were just a regular person Googling stuff, right? To a degree. I mean, maybe more databases than that, maybe, but the reality is it's essentially you pulling from everywhere. So that's why it can't go completely unchecked. It has to go checked in that regard. Regardless of all security pieces, you don't want to be giving out bad information.
Right.
You know, that is really the only thing. So I mean, if you have a way that you can make sure it's pulling from one certain area that you can, that's a trusted source, perfect. That's I think that's something that we should stress on. But I love it for especially startups that don't have the manpower.
And I was just going to add on to that, exactly like you just said, is that those that are emerging MSPs, solopreneurs, very light on staff, and they're trying to, you know, small teams, but making big impacts. And how do you leverage that and empower them, right?
The largest cost is people. We know that the largest cost you have is people. And if you hire the wrong person for the wrong job, it's more than just initial cost. It is a long burden cost. And you've seen businesses go under because of that. So I mean, again, if you can set the tone and you can find the reliable source to use that can supplement your workload at little to no cost, you've won.
Yeah. And I think, you know, I'm curious to hear from you, Chris, is partners that have joined on with ChatStyle, what has been their feedback to you once they've implemented the product into their stack, interacting it with their teams or themselves? What has been the feedback on either A, what they've helped alleviate, or B, how important as an additional guidance or an additional help for them to complete their day-to-day? What's been some of that feedback of your partners on ChatStyle?
The feedback has been great. It's been largely around making it so that the way their customer was trying to communicate with them, it was so outside of their process prior to this. Texting techs, you know, that they somehow got their number, and then the tech is handling an issue that you know that's happening completely outside of the process, or people who are using Slack to report an issue, and you know they sent in a message at Friday at 4:59 and nobody saw it until Monday morning because nobody's watching Slack. So the bot can watch Slack. The bot can watch a single number for all the text messages that are coming in and can get it all into the system where it belongs. And just from a productivity side, on the tech side, being able to stay inside of a tool that you're using, like Teams or Slack, and have that full capability of the PSA already in there, being able to change the status of a ticket just because you started working on the thread that was created because of it. Being able to add a note on the fly without having to leave Teams and go into the PSA and do that and come back. Just context switching is a productivity killer, you know, and that's why people look for this unified interface, someplace where they can do everything. And I think that Teams and Slack are this sort of universal command prompt for this time, that you can, you know, do those types of things that you would do from a command prompt, but for any tool you want.
I would say Teams, especially with 365, has become a business operating system now at this point. I mean, if you look at it, it does everything you wanted to do aside from actually building something physically. It is where you, again, I grew up using Outlook, you know, so it was an easy fix. I grew up using Excel on desktop before it was a web base, right? So if you think about this, they become, I think if you're an MSP, you should be looking at how you're going to really benefit, not from reselling, because we know Microsoft isn't going to give you anything, but why not benefit from services that are provided around the product itself? Learn to do that. Think of Microsoft as the mall. If you want to open a business in the mall, you got to make sure the mall is busy, right? You got to make sure you're complimentary. And I think that's where it is now in Teams itself. Again, with SharePoint and everything else, they made enhancements on SharePoint, thank God, because thank God.
Yeah.
But Teams itself is where everybody communicates through, and then you have Discord and you have Slack. But reality, though, most people are doing either Teams or Slack at most. You know.
Yeah.
And yeah, and to your point, for Teams, I mean, I think the last number I saw was 175 million daily users of Teams, and so a lot of those people aren't MSPs; they're the MSP's customers. And so
Right.
one of the things we're looking to do is make it possible for MSPs to build other things for their customers inside that will run inside of Teams to make their lives easier, not just communication back and forth, but if an MSP supports a specific vertical like lawyers or doctors or whatever, to be able, those folks are using Teams too, and they
Yep.
need to be have better productivity, and that's a differentiator for an MSP who can say, yes, we give you Teams just like every other MSP who's selling Office 365 does, but if you go with us, here's what you can do inside of Teams that's extra. So managed chat, if you will. So
yeah, no, I agree. I agree on all points. I think we've come to a point where communications are starting to evolve. We have to be smart about it, be as efficient as possible with that as well. Chris, we're kind of rounding out to the end of the show here. I want to make sure we've touched base on all the things you wanted to share. Is there anything that we didn't cover, really about you, the product, just for those that are listening? If not, maybe diving in and if someone would to engage with you or the company, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Well, I'd say the best way to reach out is you can find us at our website. It's chatstyle.ai. There are links there to schedule a demo or to contact us. Yeah, I think that we've covered a lot of what it is that we do. We're just trying to make it so that MSPs and their customers can manage chat to be an asset and not a risk or a liability. And hopefully we can do that for everybody.
Sounds good. Sean, any lasting words before we end off the show here?
We missed that Chris worked for NASA at one point. He didn't say that. So I have
Oh,
to get in there.
yes. We did. Forgot to add that part.
And now I'm going to have to do this. So
I know.
that's going to be our secret signal now for that. So,
no, I think it's, I mean, again, and I told you this, Paco, you told Chris before you got on even, I want to stress the fact that these vendors that are involved are very sharp people, man. They put the work in. They're still putting the work in. So I hope that MSPs are taking a look at them and giving them feedback. I mean, now's the best time to give feedback to a vendor when they're starting up and trying to figure out how to be value add. And it's impossible for any one of us to know what everybody's problem is individually with certain technologies or certain processes or what. But the whole goal of the vendor is to make things easier for the client. So I hope that people are watching this and reaching out and giving advice or at least starting a conversation and working on and providing input that makes sense. That's really all I want to make sure happens. And also check these guys out in the marketplace. I mean, they're looking to grow. The more they do, the more business they make, the better they build the products out, and the longer they're here for, and you can use them freaking indefinitely.
Yep. That is a big piece to know, is that if you want to support your teams, you want to support as much as you want vendors to support partners, we want to make sure that the partners, MSPs, are supporting the vendors as well. So that's so important. Main reason why we're doing this new series as well. So Chris, I want to thank you so much for taking the time to come out and speaking with us today. It was really insightful. I hope those that are going to reach out to you, again, head over to the website. We will make sure to have that in the show notes here. Sean, always a pleasure, my friend. We will go ahead and talk until the next one. And for those of you, we appreciate you watching and listening as well. Tune in every Wednesday and Thursday to catch more of this series. Watch the video podcast on youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, and make sure you hit that notification button so that you are notified whenever a new episode is available. We want to thank you for watching, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.